Time for the only radio show of its kind. Auctioneers of antiques, collectors of cool, veterans of vintage. It's the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer. For the next hour, enjoy great information about buying and selling antiques and collectibles, and some interesting stories. Now, the Donley Auctions Hour.
Welcome to the Donley Auctions Hour. Thank you for joining us. We are here every Saturday from 1 to 2 o'clock. Hi, I'm Susan. I'm here with Randy Donley and Mike Donley. We're the owners of Donley Auctions in Union, Illinois, and we're just 60 miles west of Chicago. And we're here today to help you determine if you have any valuable items at home that you may want to sell at auction. Hey, Randy and Mike, how are you guys?
Hey, we're great, Susan. You know, today we thought we'd start the show just a little different instead of telling people exactly what we're looking for. And we'll get to that, folks. We'll get to that a little later in the show. But, you know, we've been doing this show for well over a year now. And I remember back over a year ago, we had started our show by kind of telling people how we got started in this business and how it all got to be Donley Auctions and so on. But, you know, so many people now have come to the show as listeners, and they don't know that version of how we got started. So with Mike being in the studio today, he said, hey, well, why don't we go down memory lane and just kind of recap for folks how we got started to the point we're at now, and even why we're looking and doing what we do. Wouldn't you say, Mike?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've been at this a long time, folks. We started when we were very young, so we've been at this over 60 years now.
Well, yeah, you know, Mike and I actually. Had a family who collected antiques. Our father, he actually had a gas station in Berwyn, Illinois, back in the 1950s and 60s, and he started collecting antiques, but it kind of by accident. He actually wanted a Model T Ford to put in front of his gas station, and he couldn't afford to buy a Ford. So he started going out to Maxwell Street in Chicago, which was really the first flea market, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, before there were flea markets.
Right. There were no such thing as flea markets and sales, and probably very few auctions at that time. So everybody went to the Maxwell Street district in Chicago where items were just lined up on the sidewalk. Anybody who had anything for sale just brought it to the Maxwell Street market, put it literally out on the street. They put a blanket on the floor and have items for sale.
Yeah, it was everything. I mean, you could buy a pair of socks there, or you could buy a rare antique phonograph. It was all there. And it was tens of thousands of people. I mean, the crowds are just, you can't even imagine.
It was an absolutely incredible event. If you didn't live through the old Maxwell Street days, I feel bad for you, because it truly was a happening. But the purpose of us going to Maxwell Street, of course, was to buy parts for a Model T Ford. So my father literally could build one, kind of like Johnny Cash and his.
Yeah.
So we went starting to buy Model T parts, which we did every weekend until my father built up his 1919 Model T Ford. And then, of course, on weekends, we would take the Model T to little fairs and everything where everybody went with their cars. And lo and behold, somebody pulled up next to us with their Model T, and they had a hand-crank phonograph, and they played music all afternoon. Well, that's all Larry Donley had to know, is that there was such a thing as an antique phonograph, and we were back on Maxwell Street to find a phonograph.
Yeah, you know, you and I were like the mules there. He would buy the stuff, and we'd have to carry it around the rest of the flea market, these big, heavy phonographs.
Well, I think about that. You know, the first phonograph Larry bought was a $5 purchase, and oh my God, it was a big, heavy Columbia phonograph. And I remember, what would we have been like?
8 or 9 years old,
yeah.
maybe.
And I carried the horn, and you lugged this big, heavy phonograph. Man. When I think about how far you carried this thing all morning to get it back to the car. Well, lo and behold,
well, it hasn't changed much, you guys. You're still lugging big, heavy stuff all over the place.
Yeah, and
now
there's still the mules, but at any rate, that's kind of how it got started. A Model T Ford and a phonograph, and the phonograph didn't work, so he was repairing it on the workbench at his gas station when a woman walked in to get repairs on her car, and she says, "Oh, I have one of those in the attic." And he, of course, told her to bring it in, and I think he traded her her phonograph for a battery that she needed in her car, and the collecting craze started.
Yeah. At that time, it was older bohemians who threw nothing away.
We were in Berwyn, Berwyn, Illinois.
And the attics were just packed with anything you could imagine. They never threw anything away. Yeah,
attics and basements in Berwyn and Cicero were our gold mines. I mean, we treasure hunted in attics and basements, and from phonographs, of course, then Larry started to branch out into anything and everything, be it antique telephones or just
toys, guns,
lamps. Oh my goodness!
Then you started with military souvenirs.
What was his decision to start the phonograph show in? What year was that? What year did the phonograph show start?
Well, that didn't come until about 1974. Now, keep in mind, all of his heavy collecting was done in the late 50s through the 60s. Mm-hmm. And then in 1973, he decided that he was going to take all these collections that he had stored in garages and
semi-trailers lined up in back at the gas station.
Stuff all over Berwyn and Cicero he had stored. He decided he was going to go out to Union, Illinois, and build his dream of a little old. He first called it the Antique Village.
Yeah.
Started building a bunch of buildings on acreage. He had 7 acres of land. The original place was called 7 Acres Antique Village Museum. And so he started building these buildings to display his antiques, where he charged an admission of, I think, $1.
$1, yeah.
There was a business plan.
Yeah.
Well, we get rich charging $1 to come and see Larry Donley's antiques. Well, so at any rate, Mike and I have been in this, for just years and years, 55 years. They're about 60 years.
60 years, yeah. And we started our own collections. You started with military souvenirs, literally going door to door as a little boy, knocking on doors.
Well, I did. Since Larry was always dragging us around to flea markets and antique sales and everything, as a little kid, you don't necessarily find antique phonographs interesting or some of the things he was collecting. So I developed my own collection, which was military relics, and that's how I got into so heavy into dealing in military relics that we do at Donley Auctions right now. But anytime I had money, if Mike and I went out and cut grass or shoveled snow or anything, next thing I would be doing is knocking on neighbors' doors, asking them if they had any war souvenirs for sale, because Berwyn was just loaded at that time with World War II veterans. Everybody was a vet, of course, and most of these guys in our neighborhood were all combat veterans. They really saw action.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you had some of the best divisions.
Like the 45th, yeah. Mm-hmm. These guys were all frontline troops. They got into Berlin first and Munich and everything. And boy, oh boy, did they ever send home, SS or Adolf Hitler silverware, or just rare things. And of course, as a young collector, I didn't understand just how rare a collection we were developing.
No, you're coming up with all this great stuff, and collectors are across the country. Where is he getting all this stuff?
But right along the way, though, you were already collecting guns.
Yeah, I took an interest in not modern guns, but antique guns. I always enjoyed the antique guns from that Western era.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we got started. The Wild West town then displayed antiques. And so Mike and I started buying and selling antiques right along the way. Mm-hmm. Actually to help support the place.
Correct, yeah.
And then one at a time, people would actually start. How did people ever start asking us to do auctions? I mean, we were doing buildings in the city of Chicago years ago.
Well, yeah,
contents.
We were doing salvage on a lot of the old movie theaters and stuff too, and it got to the point where we couldn't absorb all the collections anymore people were coming to us. We'd helped people build their collections over the years, and now as they were retiring and starting to pass away, they were saying, well, now help us sell it. And we couldn't possibly buy it all, so Randy and Susan actually started the auction company and said this is going to be a great way for everybody. We can make a little money and help the people too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Susan, we'll get into a little bit of that in the next segment.
I want to talk about that auction that was the turning point for everything and what got us to really start the auction company. So we'll talk about that in the next segment.
That sounds good. But in the meantime, we'll going forward in this show today, we are going to talk about things that we are looking for. And so we'll help you liquidate some of your collections.
That's right. And all of the upcoming auctions that we have it scheduled all the way out through August already. You have to go to DonleyAuctions.com to see our calendar. You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here every Saturday on AM 560. The Answer. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
They've been called auctioneers of antiques, collectors of cool, even veterans of vintage. And they can introduce themselves. Thanks for listening. This is the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan. I'm co-owner of Donley Auctions with Randy Donley. And Randy and Mike Donley are in the studio today walking down memory lane. You guys have given us quite a bit of history about how all of this got started, and now we're just going to jump into what was the turning point in the company and how I got involved, because to me that's a very funny story, as a matter of fact.
Well, I hope you tell it well, because
I will tell it nicely. I promise. Well, I got started in the banquet hall as the wedding manager, and we were doing about 80 events and weddings every year. And then all of a sudden, you guys were doing auctions on the side somewhere. Remember, you were like off-site doing auctions and everything. And then we had auctions here at some of our events. Well, and then we said, we can do that.
We would do auctions in the city of Chicago. I mean, we sold off interiors of buildings, like, we always use Medina Temple as an example.
Right.
The old Medina Temple was there. Mike and I went there to the Medina circuses. I mean, years and years, our whole life, it seemed, as we were kids. And then here we are auctioning off the contents. It seemed kind of surreal, really.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So we would go all over. People would hire us just because we were good at selling. So people hired us to do auctions, and then Susan stepped back in there and tell them how you pushed us.
Yeah. For many years, you and I were working 80, 90 hours a week, and then we decided, I don't know how you got the phone call. We got the one phone call that changed everything, and we did an auction here. It was probably a 2 or 3 day for the Grateful Dead family. Remember that? Well, that was the turning point for all of us.
And I do know how that came about. Again, a phonograph collector had asked us to sell off the family phonograph collection. A phonograph collector friend of our father's had passed away, and we sold off that phonograph collection at auction, and it turns out that we ended up at that point setting 3 world records for the highest prices ever for antique phonographs, some of which still hold to this day. And people read that in the newspapers and everything, and we get this call from California. And a gentleman says, well, if you can get that kind of money out of phonographs, guess what we have?
So Randy and I hop on a plane. We fly to San Francisco, rent a truck, clear out the storage units, and help all of the family members of the Grateful Dead. They were the employees who had such great memorabilia of Jerry Garcia and the band for years, and posters and everything. And we drove it back, and we set up it was one of our first auctions. We did have some prior to that, but this was one of our biggest ones where we learned a lot from it. And it was such a huge success that we decided, that's it. We're done with weddings and events. We're going to do auctions full time. I sent you to auctioneer school, and the rest is history.
It really is.
And you got to remember, the stuff that came out of that garage was when Garcia had died, they just packed up the offices and put it in the storage bin, and it was like a time capsule. I mean, there was stuff that nobody had ever seen or didn't even know existed anymore.
It truly was.
We had receipts of when he bought his glasses. We had a book that he was reading when he passed away.
Doodles.
We had a firearm. We had a T-shirt from the Soldier Field concert.
Things like little doodles when he was at their weekly meetings, where he would just sketch little doodles and stuff because he was an artist too. I mean, it was just crazy. The T-shirt that he was wearing at his last concert. I mean, it was just crazy.
It really was quite an auction, and of course it did extremely well. And I would have to say that really solidified us as being one of the major auction houses going forward from that point on.
Yeah, it was quite a leap really fast.
We had to continue with weddings at the same time we were doing auctions because I had them booked out almost 2 years in advance.
Wow.
So we were doing double duty. We would have a wedding, break it down, set up an auction, break it down, set up a wedding. It was nuts. Yeah. But then we were able to finally run those out and switch over to the auction company full time. And wow, what a ride it's been.
It really has been. I mean, we're doing 2-3 auctions a month. Speaking of which, we've got one going on right now. Tell them about that, yes. Susan.
Okay, right now, folks, it's not too late. We have a vintage stereo and audio auction. Remember, we were talking about it last week. Crazy stuff from amps and speakers, cassette decks, receivers, speakers, subwoofers, oh my gosh, turntables, the list goes on, with all of the name brands that you could possibly think of. The auction is happening right now. It started at 9 a.m. this morning. All of the items are located at the audio shop in Lake Geneva, but we're holding the auction in Union. You can either drive on out and get here for some lunch and some beverages, or you can bid online, and all you have to do is go to Donley Auctions. It's DONLEY, auctions.com, and you can bid online. And if you're not comfortable doing that, it's a very easy process. You can call us at 815-923-7000. We'll walk you through the steps. We'll even do an absentee or a phone bid for you. Easy peasy.
You know, it's really a great auction, and as Susan said, this is going to go on for hours yet today because we've got we're selling 900 items.
Yeah.
Gentlemen had collected up all this great vintage stereo equipment and audio equipment and was going to open a vintage store. But time has gotten away from him, and the store is not going to happen in Lake Geneva. So that's where the items are located. Viewing was yesterday on Friday, but you can view it all online. We've had it up online, and you can buy online or still come here because we'll probably be here till 8, 9 o'clock at night selling.
Yeah, probably. And I know some of the highlights in the auction are those Marantz items.
Oh my goodness!
So those are big ticket items for sure.
A lot of good equipment. But since we're doing the audio auction today, we do have a lot of items on display for our upcoming phonograph auction, which is in June. And Mike, why don't you tell them a little bit about how the June phonograph show actually has morphed into now our June phonograph auctions.
Yeah, for 45 years, 44 years, something like that. We did the Antique Phonograph and Music Box Show, which we actually started back in 1974. A couple years ago, because of the auctions were so busy, we decided to turn it over to the Antique Phonograph Society, and they're holding it the second week of June at the Hyatt in Schaumburg. Great show to go to see early phonographs and music boxes. But 2 days before the auction on a Wednesday and Thursday, 2 days before the show on a Wednesday and Thursday, we hold a phonograph and music box auction. So anything pre-electric, crank wind-up phonographs and music boxes, parts, anything like that we will have. So if you have anything in that line, give us a call.
Well, absolutely, and not just one item either. I mean, we'll take one item, a hand crank phonograph, but a lot of you have collections out there that we don't even know about. We don't know all the collectors in the Chicago market, and it doesn't have to be Chicago. Again, Mike mentioned at the beginning of the show, we've been driving all over the country. We just have been in multiple states just this last week. So we'll come out to pick up an entire collection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's things right in our backyard, too. I mean, just last week, a gentleman from Elgin walked in with his music box collection. So, I mean,
let me tell you how they can do that real quick. First of all, the auction is June 12th and 13th, so we're almost a month away, folks. So if you do have anything in phonographs, music boxes, give us a call at 815-923-7000. Better yet, what we always request is that you email us at consign, C-O-N-S-I-G-N, consign at donleyauctions.com. Tell us what you have, tell us where you're located, and send us a photo. I will hand that over to Mike and Randy immediately. They will call you and talk to you about next steps.
Sounds good, Sue. And again, not only phonographs. Again, in this show, we're going to be talking about not only other upcoming auctions, but a lot of the other items that we're looking for. And I'm going to kind of tip you off. If you've got a minute during the commercials, and of course, we want you to listen to the commercials, but we're going to be talking about Behringer motion display pieces that used to be in jewelry stores. So go to your computers and look up Behringer, Baраnger, so you can follow along with me in the next segment. We're going to talk a little bit about Behringer in our next segment. Right?
That's right. Well, thank you for the walk down memory lane, you guys. So glad that we started this auction company. It's been a dream come true. And again, if you have anything you'd like to put up for auction, give us a call at 815-923-7000 or email us at consign at donleyauctions.com. You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here every Saturday on AM 560, The Answer.
You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. I'm Susan. I'm here with Randy and Mike Donley. They're in the studio today talking about upcoming auctions and things they're looking for that you might want to put up for auction as well. And you guys, thanks for the little trip down memory lane. That was very nostalgic. Thanks for that.
Yeah, Susan, one thing I wanted to mention was you had made a comment about when you worked at the banquet hall, you work 80 and 90 hours a week. Are you working any less now?
I think it's like 79. It's only 79. But we do have much more freedom now. You know, weddings were pretty pretty tense.
Intense.
Sure.
Yeah.
Our auctions are also events, so it's like I've just kind of transitioned into a different type of event, and it's a lot of fun. But we have a much bigger staff, and it's wonderful. I love it here.
It is an exciting business, and I mentioned that we're all over the country, and we just did a trade show, an advertising, antique advertising show in Indiana, where we found a Behringer motion display that we actually ended up buying at the show, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about Behringer, you know, so that people have just kind of an insight as to the type of things we're always looking for, the variety. And Behringer was a company that actually manufactured specialized motion displays that you would put in jewelry store windows to attract attention. These were electronic and mechanical motion devices so that when you walked past the jewelry store, it would attract your attention to look in and see all their rings and watches and everything for sale. The company started in the 1930s and made these motion devices until, 57?
57, I believe the company went out of business.
1957, they went out of business, but left an amazing amount of Behringer display pieces, advertising items across the country. But originally, they didn't sell these. You had to lease them from Behringer.
Yeah, they would ship them in a wooden crate. You had them on contract for a month or two, and then you would have to ship them back, where they would refurbish them, make sure they were pristine before they went out to the next customer.
And they'd go to the next jewelry store. But in 1957, when they closed, apparently they didn't collect these back. The last ones that were out there have, remained in jewelry stores all across the country. And then, of course, the Behringer studio was bought out by a collector who refurbished and sold a lot of these off. But they are highly, highly collectible. And if you have any type of motion advertising, well, all advertising we're always looking for upcoming auctions. But we tell you about Behringer, so you can go to your computers and get a really interesting look at motion displays from the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah, contact us if you have them or know somebody who has anything, whether it be a Behringer or any type of motion display. It doesn't even have to be working, can be parts. I mean, some of these things go for tens of thousands of dollars, so, don't think that they're junk, because even something that's old and dusty and missing parts can be worth a lot of money.
This one that we bought in Indiana was actually found during a sale in the basement of a jewelry store. An old jewelry store closed up, and it was being garage saled off, and a gentleman was able to snag this. I don't know what he paid for it, but we paid thousands for it. So there is stuff, and this is one thing we're always warning you about. Be careful what you sell. If you don't know the price, you can't just play the best guessing game. That's what we'll do for you. If you email us pictures or even text photos or anything, we'll be more than happy to give you our opinions as to what this stuff is worth. So, Susan, how would they do that?
All right, give us a call at 815-923-7000. That's one way. The best way, though, is to email us at consign@DonleyAuctions.com. Again, just tell us who you are, where you are, what you have, and send us some photos. We'll get that information to Mike and Randy immediately. They'll give you a call and discuss next steps. We try to keep the process as simple as possible.
Now, we have a huge advertising auction coming up in August.
August, correct, yes.
August. So we're looking for small items, little small beer signs, whether it be neons or motion or any of these things, right on up to the big, huge porcelain gas and oil signs.
Big neon signs from restaurants and such. And
for Mike and I, the bigger the better.
Yeah, liquor stores. I mean, we send crews out and take them off the sides of buildings. I mean, it doesn't have to be something in your garage, even if you have a building or nowhere there's one. I mean,
that's another thing. We pay finder's fees. So if you spot something that you think Donley Auctions should have, let us know, and we'll pay you a commission if we can either buy it or consign it for the auction. Right?
That's right. And don't forget, you can call us again at 815-923-7000 if you have any questions about consignment or the commission or any of that kind of stuff. We'll be happy to talk to you on the phone or just email us. We started out in the gas station business years ago. That's what our father started. So we're always into cars, motorcycles, and alike. So I'd like to, when we come back, talk about an upcoming auction that we have with the Mancuso collection. That's right, the Ferrari signs and memorabilia auction. We'll talk about that, and our gun and military auction coming up in just a couple. That's next week already, you guys.
Wow!
All right, don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Now, more of the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. Thanks for sticking with us during that break. I'm Susan, co-owner of Donley Auctions, here with Mike and Randy Donley. Folks, we're located just 60 miles west of Chicago. So all these auctions we're talking about, you can come on out. It's easy access right off of I-90. Come see us sometime, because we're going to be talking about our next auction next weekend, Randy.
Boy, we sure are. I said we're going to talk about the Mancuso auction, but we're going to save that for the next segment because you're right. Next week, we've got unbelievable auction coming up with guns and military relics. It's a 2-day fabulous auction. One day, first day, Saturday, is guns and firearms. How many items do we have in that one, Susan?
We have 741 items on Saturday. The auction starts at 10 a.m. Come on in for coffee and donuts because the doors open at 8.
And, of course, you can go to the Donley Auctions right now to view both of these auctions.
Right, DonleyAuctions.com. Click on the red button that says View Catalog.
So I love this auction because in the military relics section, which, of course, is what I always collected and still have a passion for, I love the fact that so many of these military items actually came directly from families, so they have impeachable provenance. We've got a pilots grouping that is so interesting because actually Mike had to build it one piece at a time, kept asking the family, do you have this? Yes, we've got that. Do you have this? Yes, we've got. They had to keep bringing us more items. It started out as just a jacket with the wings on it, and now it has photographs. It has the gentleman's medals and everything. And he was a Thunderbolt pilot. He was a fighter pilot with like 30 missions. I mean, just incredible. And how many oak leaf clusters on his air medal?
10 oak leaf clusters.
Oh, wow. Boy, this guy saw action. But that's just one grouping. We've got another grouping that was sent home to a gentleman in Chicago, a World War II vet actually was sending home war trophies, helmets and daggers and medals and insignia. It's still in the original box with the original wrapping, just as it was sent home from World War II. It was found in an attic. The family is now selling it after all these years. What an interesting time capsule.
Yeah, I mean, the whole auction, the military auction, is I think this is one of our best by far. I mean, because so many of the items have great provenance. I mean, we have the Wright brothers glass slides. We have the trainer there, the airplane trainer. I mean, that
training plane, a 5-foot wingspan training plane that taught pilots how to fly in World War I.
Yeah, the guy started training people in, I think, 1911. And, I mean, this thing belongs in the Smithsonian. It's unbelievable.
Right. This is a piece that had actually been in a museum since 1919 to the 1960s when it was deaccessioned and the current owner was able to acquire it. So, once it gets sold again, it'll be off the market probably for another 20 years. Very, very rare piece of history. And not only that, we've got a gentleman whose father was a World War II German pilot. And this gentleman has consigned his father's German jacket, World War II Luftwaffe jacket, and his medals and insignia and hats. And this is all coming, again, directly from a family of a World War II German pilot.
Yeah, and we have everything from Civil War on up to Vietnam items in this auction. One of my favorite items just came in about 10 days ago, and that was that shell from the Spanish-American War. It's engraved that it was fired by the USS Brooklyn at the Spanish flagship, the Vicuña, which they sunk, and that was a decisive naval battle in the Spanish-American War. And this is one of the shells that was actually fired at the Vicuña. I mean, unbelievable stuff.
Yeah. And so, we're history peddlers here, folks. We are honestly selling such historic items, passing history along to new hands. So definitely go to our website and look at this auction coming up.
Yeah, and
don't forget, too, about that World War II A2 flight jacket. That's one of my favorites as well. And all of that is coming up on Sunday, May 19th, folks. The auction starts at 10 a.m., doors open at 8. But we'll have a preview on Friday and Saturday and early Sunday morning. So come on out or give us a call.
And I love you mentioning the flight jackets because, folks, we asked you for flight jackets on the air here. And, in fact, the lady who consigned these heard us on the radio and brought in the flight jackets. So I'm going to tell you right now, we are currently looking in military relics for World War II Japanese samurai swords. We're putting together a fabulous sword auction upcoming. So if you have anything, if your family has acquired World War II Japanese swords over the year from the war and you still have these around the house, we need these for an upcoming auction.
Yeah, and don't think that anything might not have value because Japanese swords, Randy will tell you, Some of those bring thousands and thousands of dollars.
Actually, it can go up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you need to have your swords checked out. You can't sell those at a garage sale.
That's right. I hope all of you are racing home to go check in your attic or garage for any swords, and give us a call at 815-923-7000 or email us at consign@DonleyAuctions.com. Again, Mike and Randy, military experts, will take a look at what you have. And, you know, you guys are so honest with your appraisals and estimates on everything that everybody should be calling and just getting an idea of whether or not they can sell it at auction.
Happy to help.
Go anywhere. Yeah, we're not done yet, folks. You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here every Saturday at 1 o'clock on AM 560, The Answer.
The Donley Auctions Hour continues now on AM 560, The Answer.
We are back with the Donley Auctions Hour. Susan, Mike, and Randy talking about items that you might have at home that are valuable that you might want to put up for auction. And Randy, I can't wait to hear more about the sports car auction that's coming up Friday, July 16th. You know how I love cars, but this is the best of the best. Tell us about it.
Well, you know, I was talking when we're going down memory lane how we started in the gas station business back in Berwyn, and so cars and any cars, motorcycles are near and dear to us. And this auction coming up is going to be at the Ferrari dealership, at the Mancuso Ferrari dealership on a Friday evening. And Mr. Rick Mancuso has a phenomenal collection of Ferrari advertising and memorabilia that used to hang in the shop. And over the years, he has just instead of disposing of anything, he's just accumulated all these great signs. And it's just not a Ferrari. I mean, there's Maserati and just all kinds of Aston Martins,
a McLaren, a Lamborghini. I mean, just some, and they're all in like perfect condition, aren't they?
Well, as is the whole Mancuso dealership. Is probably you could eat off the floors in the workspace there. It's just an incredible facility, and so even just to see that. But the cars, Susan, tell us about the cars that are going to be in this auction.
Okay, listen to this. We have a '57 Chevy. It is white. It is beautiful. It's a race car. A Chevy Corvette GT1, a GT1 Camaro, and a Ferrari 488 Challenge. Oh, my gosh, that's just to name a few. And then, of course, the Richard Petty race car and the Mario Andretti race car.
The STP car, yeah. And Richard Petty's is actually the second car Richard Petty ever raced in. He won his second, third, and fourth victories in this car. It's all restored and ready to go. These cars, it's just going to be a great auction. We love selling vintage cars, and racing memorabilia, of course, is the best. But
there's even a Ferrari engine on the list here, a Ferrari 458 engine.
You know, the thing about Ferrari stuff is you can't get it anywhere. It is so rare, so hard to find, and now we're offering so much of it at one time. This is such an absolute rare and incredible opportunity. This will be one of the highlight auctions of the year anywhere.
And don't forget to go to DonleyAuctions.com. It's not online yet. We're working on it. It should be online just in the next few days.
Yeah.
The auction is located at the Ferrari dealership in Lake Forest, but it is invitation only. Randy, so how is that going to work?
Well, if you're interested in coming, you're going to have to let us know because we have very limited space. It's held Friday night, and so you're actually going to have to get a ticket to get in. So there won't be any cost to that. But if this is an auction that you would like to attend, you're going to have to just call us or email us at Donley Auctions so we can save you a space to get into the auction.
That's right. You can email us at the same email, consign@DonleyAuctions.com, and request a ticket, and we will definitely be in touch with you on the time that the auction starts. Also, people can put in phone bids and absentee bids even if they can't be there live in person. So that is still an opportunity for you to bid. If you want to call us, and I'll be happy to get on the phone with you.
Sounds good. And if you've got any more items coming up to add to this auction, let us know.
Yeah, and don't forget, too, the August Summer Classic. That is the one we're looking for some great items. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back next week. We'll have more information for you on upcoming auctions and things we're looking for. For now, I'm Susan.
And I'm Randy Donley.
I'm Mike Donley.
And we'll see you at the auction.
Thanks for listening to the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer. Check out all the latest information on upcoming auctions and collectibles at DonleyAuctions.com. And while you're there, you can contact someone about buying or selling your collectibles or estates. That's DonleyAuctions.com.